So we've reached the top part of our podcast where we're going to talk the whole AFC top to bottom. He's done this the last couple of years in a row. Sterling from Silver Star Sports. How you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. Football season's inching closer and closer, and I'm excited to talk about it, especially this AFC. It's going to be a wild one.
AFC is going to be flipping phenomenal. And who better to talk about than the Buffalo Bills? I mean, you want to talk about a team that's just been so close 2 seasons in a row. You kind of feel bad for them. They have made some interesting changes. No more Brian DeBull. The Bull is gone. They brought in some key pieces in terms of Von Miller. They got Daquan Jones and Tim Settle to help the defensive line. They brought in Roger Scaffel and Dan Quisenberry to help the interior of the offensive line. Interesting team here. You know, why don't we dive in? Why don't you tell me your initial thoughts of the Buffalo Bills?
So the Buffalo Bills are an interesting team. It seems like everyone in the AFC has a little bit of hype around them, and especially the Bills. They're the preseason favorites to win the Super Bowl. I looked earlier today, plus 600 as the favorite. It seems like all the other AFC teams, they have a sense of mystery about them, but we know what we're going to get from the Bills. So that's why I like them a little bit better than all the other teams in the AFC. Super interesting team. Josh Allen looks like an MVP candidate this year. Looking for them to take the next jump. It'll be interesting to see if they can do it without Dable. But yeah, no, this team is just really good all the way around, no matter which way you look at it.
So here are my notes on them. Ken Dorsey's coming in. He's going to be the offensive coordinator. They brought in Joe Brady, who I absolutely love. You know how much I love Joe Brady. But offensive line-wise, they bring in Aaron Comer. And I really think this is going to lead to a little bit more of a rushing attack and mainly a zone rushing attack. Josh Allen ran 35% of the time last year for the Bills. 35% of the carry percentage. I think that's going to kind of go backward. I think we're going to see James Cook take over because he's a zone rusher. Singletary's not. They brought in Scaffel, 13th PFF run blocking guard. Quisenberry, 5th PFF run blocking guard. I think this is kind of like they're going to run the ball a little bit more, and I think it's going to be James Cook's backfield. I love the signing of Jamison Crowder if he can stay healthy. Dude, I mean, you got that underneath guy. I think that's huge if he can stay healthy, which is the big if. One of the big disappointments has been OJ Howard. Do you feel a change of scenery is good for OJ?
I think a change of scenery could definitely do him well. If you look back at Tampa, they had Rod Gronkowski, Cameron Brate. It was never really his tight end room. It still might not be here just because of Dawson Knox, but I think they'll be able to utilize him just because there's a second weapon that needs to be unlocked in this offense. You have Stephon Diggs, but who's going to be the number 2 guy? So could be Gabriel Davis. I think he'll have a big year after his big playoff performance last year. I think he will take the next step. But yeah, no, I think OJ Howard was a good signing under the radar.
Now, let's kind of look. I'm looking at their schedule right here. They start off at the Rams, Tennessee, Miami. I mean, they could really, really easily be 3-0 going into Baltimore. And then they play Pittsburgh at Kansas City. Now, that Kansas City game, I really think they're going to have circled. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Steelers were able to sneak up on them. After the bye, they play Green Bay. God only knows what we're going to get with Green Bay. At New York, Minnesota, Cleveland. That could be an easy 3-game stretch because the fact the Browns signed Josh Rosen leads me to believe that Deshaun Watson is going to be suspended. I thought, now don't get me wrong, I think he should be suspended the whole season. But with the precedent set by the Greg Hardy situation, Hardy getting 10 games reduced to 4, I thought Watson was going to get 4 to 6. The Rosen signing makes me think that it's going to be longer. If this is like a Rosen or a Brissett game, that's going to be easy. Thursday in Detroit, that's a loss. Mark it down. Lions shocking the world, upsetting the Bills. I think it's a doable schedule. You know what I mean? There's not that really like some of these teams we're going to talk about. They have these tough stretches. They really don't have that much of a tough like 4-game stretch.
Yeah, no, I think they have great runway to be the top seed in the AFC. You look at their schedule compared to like others, as you mentioned, and I really think that they'll coast to the number 1 seed in the division or in the conference.
Yeah, I have them at 12-5, dude.
I have them 13-4. So,
I mean, well, obviously you haven't beaten Detroit, which is a mistake, dude. I mean, obviously you haven't beating Detroit, which is a mistake. Yeah, I mean, I think it's their Super Bowl, but obviously my thing is I never bet a team that's under 20-1 at this point to win a Super Bowl. I just don't think it's the right play, just because we saw last year they did have a little bit of a hiccup of the season, and they were up to like 15-1 to win it. So there's always going to be a value play when you can get somebody. So I'll definitely like wait off a little bit on going after them. Next team we're going to talk about, an interesting team, a very interesting team, because they're one of the few teams that I can remember that lost 7 straight, but then won 7 straight in the same season. They made an you know what? I wanted to ask you about this because someone asked me this and it kind of caught me off guard. And they fired Flores, but all his assistants stayed.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little weird?
I think it was an internal power struggle, and it's weird because most Dolphin fan I see, they are reluctant to give Flores credit for like that win streak and what he's done with the team over the past few years. So I definitely think there was something else going on that we're not privy to right now. But Flores was a great coach, man, and I don't know how they're going to replace him. I don't know. He just did so much for that team, just as a CEO and a leader, and being able to get the most out of their guys. Because remember last year, 2 years ago, they were running with Patrick Laird, and that team was able to win games and compete at the NFL level. Like, I don't understand. So,
yeah, it's just something that's really interesting to me. Loaded running back room. I really don't know who's going to be the running back one. This kind of stood out to me. Sony Michel was third in most red zone touches, which is kind of crazy to me. Outside running zone system, Shanahan has taken McDonald everywhere he's been since he's been in Cleveland. And last year, 2 years ago, because last year they let him interview, they wouldn't let him interview for any jobs. Do you think McDaniel was kind of the guy who was driving the 49ers and this whole Shanahan ship for the past like 6 years?
I don't know if I'd go that far because I think Shanahan, he has his own like coaching tree within the NFL. You see a lot of these teams, especially in the AFC, run this wide zone Shanahan offense. But I do think McDaniel, if you're like flashback last year, the 49ers didn't start out too hot. And a lot of people were calling for Kyle Shanahan's job. So I think they wanted McDaniel to be there in case things didn't correct itself. And that's why they didn't let him interview for jobs. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does with this offense, if he can get more out of Tua. I know that's a whole conversation in itself. What are your thoughts on Tua? I know. But
Tua sucks. I mean, this is my thing. And this is like something like nobody talks about. So when you have a left-handed quarterback, let's not even look at his inefficiencies. When you have a left-handed quarterback, the ball comes out of the hand different. And it's just the fact of life. There's more right-handed people than left-handed. So receivers aren't used to that. Left tackle and right tackle, their responsibilities flip-flop. So that's a huge thing. Blocking schemes change. So just factor in that. That's one strike against them. Number 2, his mechanics are way off. Like I said from the get-go, if you want him to be successful, it has to be quick hitting offense, West Coast style, gets the ball out of his hand quickly because he can't throw the ball down the field. That's just the fact of life. So if this turns into something like offensively where the offensive line can improve him, they brought in Armstead from the Saints, and if he can stay healthy, which has been an issue, yeah, you add Connor Williams, okay, you're keeping him protective. But the fact they brought in someone like Teddy Bridgewater kind of tells me what they think of him.
Yeah, one foot in, 1 foot out for them. And then you made a good point about the left tackle, right tackle, their roles flipping. Who's playing right tackle for this team? Austin Jackson. He's been terrible so far in his young NFL career. And then Liam Eichenberg. I don't feel confident him protecting my franchise QB at the moment. Also, they invested a lot in the running game.
Why are you hitting on Liam, man?
What?
Why you hitting on Eichenberg, man?
Eichenberg's fine as a development, But yeah, they invested a lot in this run game. But even then, I really don't think they'll have like a top 15 run game in the NFL. Mostert's always injured. Chase Edmonds was fine in Arizona. Sony Michel, what did he do with all those touches? So yeah, I'm not really big on this Dolphins team.
I mean, you mentioned like right now, I'm pulling up their offensive line, and their offensive line. Yeah, Eichenberg, 109th overall, 108th pass blocking, 91st in run blocking. That's who their right tackle is. Then they have Robert Hunt, 45 overall, 42nd pass blocking, 48th run blocking. So, I'm not saying it's going to be better. I'm not saying it's going to be elite, but it is going to be better than what it was last year. And the analogy I always give Dolphins fans is this. Look, I live in Chicago, which is bitter cold. If I'm going to buy a Lamborghini, I'm going to get a garage before I get a Lamborghini. I kind of feel like the Dolphins just kind of got the Lamborghini that's turning out to be, I'm going to say, a Corvette, but they still don't have a garage. You know what I mean? Tua does have some deficiencies. And, okay, guess just off the top of your head, what was Jalen Waddle in rankings of wide receivers in average depth of target last year?
Ooh. I'm assuming he had like 7.4.
No, like in wide receiver. Like what was he like? All the wide receivers.
36.
You're going to have to add 97 to that. He was wide receiver 133 in average depth of target. So that kind of proves what you and I have been saying, that Tua just can't throw it down the field. I think we're going to see Tyreek Hill in a lot of the Debo, like lining up in the backfield, just trying to get the ball in his hands. I think Gesicki is going to have a big part of the offense. He could have a Kittle-type season with all the tight end drags that the 49ers have run. But, okay, let's talk about this defense real quick, and then we'll cycle back. Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, dude, 30 is when stuff starts to deteriorate. That is where both of them are at. They forced a lot of turnovers. When is that going to regress? And something I've gotten into Pythagorean win totals. So that is points scored over points scored plus points allowed divided by times games. So they won 10 games last year. Okay. Their Pythagorean win total was close to 9. So that means they overachieved by 0.8. That's almost 1. Teams that are around that, they tend to regress. So, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like this is a tough team for me, but you look at their stretch. Okay. I mean, they could realistically start the season off 0-4, man. They play New England, Baltimore, Buffalo, the Bengals on the road, short week. I mean, dude, they could easily be 0-4 to start the season. Like, what do you think they need to be to have Tua be benched?
I don't see Tua getting benched until double-digit number of weeks.
So hypothetically, let's say they lose to New England, lose at the Ravens, lose against the Bills, lose at the Bengals. They're 0-4. They play the Jets 0-5. They play the Minnesota Vikings. They lose that. They're 0-6. They're 0-6 going into week 7 against Pittsburgh, who's I don't think is going to be that good this year. Did they make the switch then?
Certainly possible. I would say they would make the switch at the bye. Their record going into there remains to be seen. We're just both not high on this team at all.
I have them at 8-9. I mean, I have them at 8-9.
That's more generous than me. I'm having them 6-11. Actually.
And I just don't like. It's amazing to me all these fantasy football experts don't understand math. Like, how math wise can you have Hill and Waddle as top 15 wide receivers, then have Tua as a bottom quarterback? Math wise, that like doesn't, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. What do you expect from Tyreek Hill? Like, if you had to predict his stat line,
I expect him to be exactly used by Debo, lined up in the backfield, a lot of like little, give them to him in the backfield. I think he's gonna get ultra frustrated.
Oh, yeah. I think I could just imagine by week 4, there'll be him throwing his hands up as he runs deep and Tua doesn't hit him or underthrows a ball to him. I just feel like their offense is so gimmicky between having Waddle, who did that a lot last year, and then Hill. I mean, yeah, theoretically 2 guys like that are hard to guard, but that offense is just going to be gimmicky. It's a college offense.
And one thing that we need to remember is this. Tua's familiar with Waddle, so he's always going to look to him. Is Hill wants to be the man, wants to get targets? Is he going to get frustrated by not, you know what I mean, by not being the first look? I kind of feel that's kind of something that's not really being talked about enough.
I totally agree.
I have him at 8-9. I don't know. Like, I like the coach. I think the coach is the right hire. But I'll be honest, I just don't think Tua is the guy. I think they need to improve the offensive line. I think they need a clear-cut RB1. Yeah, and their start to the season is just absolutely brutal. So yeah, I have them at 8-9. Next, we're gonna go to another interesting team, and believe it or not, I have 2 bets, and they're both on the same player. 2 bets, same player. We're going to the New England Patriots, 10-7 last year. This is my thought about the Patriots. They have no OC. They have no quarterback coach. They have all these coaches. They have no DC. They have all these coaches, but like no one, what are people coaching?
Yeah.
Mac Jones is entering his 2nd season. Who's his quarterback coach? Who's his offensive coordinator? Like, I don't know what's going on here.
And then, don't they have, like, with the DC, it's like co-defensive coordinators? Because isn't it Gerard Mayo and Steve Belichick? But then also Belichick's going to have his hand on the defense. So that's basically like 3 different voices you're listening to on the defensive side of the ball.
Just doesn't make sense. Offensive line, they drafted Cole Strange with the 1st round. He's going to take over for Shaq Mason. Mason got the 4th highest PFF grade for guards last season.
I don't know why they got rid of him. He was so good last year.
It just doesn't make sense. They brought in Devontae Parker, but they were 8th in rushing attempts, 8th in rushing yards. Damian Harris is a free agent. He's entering the last year of his contract. What Belichick has showed us is these guys, he just runs into the ground. He just runs them into the ground, gets a new running back to bring in. They lost J.C. Jackson. I think that's going to be huge for that defense because how the defensive plays, they need that corner that can lock down a side of the field. But I will say this. And son of a gun, this is the most interesting thing you'll hear. The Pythagorean win total. Okay. They won. Oh my God, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I am sorry. I have my wrong Pythagorean win total up. They look for their Pythagorean win total. They underachieved last year. They underachieved. which is kind of crazy because you think of teams that overachieve. One of the first teams that comes to your mind is who? The Patriots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Their Pythagorean win total, they only won 10 games last year. Okay. Their Pythagorean win total was 12.12.
Jeez, that's interesting.
Which means they underachieved by 2.12 games, which means they're due for some positive regression, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. My two plays are this, and I like Damian Harris over 850 yards. If Belichick or Matt Patricia truly are running plays, I think this is going to be a run-first team. I think they're going to look to control the clock, keep the defense on the sidelines. So I like Damian Harris over 850 total yards. And my long shot, Damian Harris to have the most rushing yards, 25-1. I just feel they're going to run him into the ground. I feel the offensive line, if Cole Strange is either like a top 15 PFF run blocker, that's what we're going to look to do. They're going to limit the exposure of Mac Jones. So yeah, I absolutely love like the over 850 rushing yards. And, I think it's worth a flyer, putting on them to be the leading rusher for Damian Harris. So I really like those two bets.
Yeah, this team, super interesting because I'm not sure about that offense. When you compare them against like the other teams in the AFC, the Ravens, Baltimore, the Chiefs, they just don't have as dynamic an offense. So it worries me if they get down, like how they did in the playoffs against the Bills, that they won't be able to come back because throwing to Jacoby Myers, Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, I don't really think that's your ceiling can only go so high with those people. I think they lost plenty of pieces on the defense. We already mentioned J.C. Jackson, but Kyle Van Noy, who did just a little bit of everything for that defense and has been one of the most underrated players in the NFL for years. He's also gone now. I think with the unclear structure of the organization, I think this team might struggle. I know you mentioned positive regression, but you can't really bet against them necessarily though because of Belichick, because they're always well prepared, well coached. But I'm not sure. I have them at 8-9 or 9-8. Sorry,
I have them at 10-7. I mean, there's like that Cleveland game on the 6th, this week 6. We don't know what's going on with Watson there. I think they beat the Colts before the bye. Minnesota, they're at Minnesota in a short week. I'm really low on the Vikings this year. I don't know how you are on the Vikings, but I'm really low on them. We really don't know what's going to happen with Arizona in week 14. I don't know. I have them at 10-7 again. Maybe it's my Belichick biased, but I have them at 10-7. So but it is a little worrisome to me how they have all these coaches and literally nobody coaching anything. So is Belichick is he just the man who's just saying everything? I don't know. And that's my worry point. Next team. First of all, hypothetically, let's play what if.
Mm-hmm.
Hypothetically, let's say, because you're a young dude. Let's say you like how would you handle it if your best friend started dating your mom? That's what
we'd have some issues.
You know what I mean? Like how like that whole Zach Wilson story is just absolutely positively blows my mind.
For real, yeah.
B, I don't even know what to you know what I mean? It's like, what do I think with that? I don't know. Like, it's just for those that don't know, allegedly what happened was Zach Wilson broke up with his girlfriend. His girlfriend started dating his best friend, and then his girlfriend posted on the gram that Wilson was sleeping with or having an affair when they were dating with his best friend's mom. That's basically the long story short of the gist. So let me ask you this. You're the Jets, right? You have a young quarterback that struggles. What's the best thing for a young quarterback that struggles? A running game, right?
Yeah.
Jets were 13th in rushing yards per attempt last year. Okay. 13th. Why aren't they running the ball more?
I think that was their role. They didn't believe in Michael Carter as much, and I think that's why they invested in Brees Hall. Um, should
But
look
I
at
guess my point is like, if you're 13th in rushing yards attempted,
that, run the ball.
why not just run the ball? Like I don't get it. Um, so that brings me to that point. Do they have the right coaches for the job? Robert Saleh is supposed to be this defensive minded coach. They gave up the most points and yards last season. That's a big worry for me. Um, Offensive line is good, a little under the radar. They got Becton 2 years ago, but he's having some stuff going on. Like he exited the first game, didn't come back. Coaches are saying he has to battle for his starting job. Vera Tucker, they got him. They added Tomlinson in free agent. They drafted Max Mitchell from Louisiana, who I'm very high on. I think that was a good, solid pick. I think you're right. I think drafting Hall means they want to, run the ball a little bit more. I don't feel like they have a true number one wide receiver. Like is Corey Davis when he played 21% target share. So is he the number one? Is Moore the number one? Garrett Wilson the number one? I don't know who the alpha in the room is. I just don't know. There's a lot of questions for me around this team. I'm not a big Sauce Gardner guy. I'll say it.
Really? Okay. I think he'll be good in the scheme with Robert Saleh, who likes physical corners. But yeah, my thoughts on the Jets. I feel like for the first time in a long time, you can say the Jets are actually moving in the right direction. I say all credit to Joe Douglas. He's put together like a good assortment of young talent with this young coaching staff. But with that youth, there comes like a lot of inexperience, a lot of unpredictability. This roster has a lot of potential, but if you look at their schedule, it's tough. It's one of the tougher ones in the league. I actually did my preview on this team first before looking at their schedule, and I was honestly disappointed for them because it's hard. If we could just take a second look at that for
They
the
open
open AFC North,
Yeah.
and then Week 5 you go to Miami, winnable game. But after that, you play in two of the toughest places to play, Lambeau and Mile High.
What they're playing in Detroit on week 6?
No.
I'm messing with you, dude. I'm messing with you. You said tough place to play.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm messing with you. I'm messing.
what? All right. Then after you come back, you play two of last year's playoff teams, the Pats and Bills. And then for a young team, I don't know if you can recover, even though the second half of their schedule is easier. I don't know if you can recover if you start 2-7 and 1-8. That's going to be detrimental to the psyche of a young team. So,
I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Their schedule is a little tough. You know, that's one of the teams they have, like you hit in the head, that 4-game stretch of Green Bay, Denver, New England, Buffalo, right after the bye, New England. They just have like these little, even start of the season, Baltimore, like basically you said it, they play the AFC North. Like they have a tough little stretch, and I don't know. They do play the Bengals at a good spot. Bengals kind of a flat spot with how the Bengals schedule is. But yeah, I have this team winning 6 games, and I feel I am very generous with this. You mentioned Sauce Gardner about being physical. I mean, if he's not getting the calls and fighting with those hands and just giving up PI after PI, kind of limited what he can do. I have him at 6-11, and I feel I'm being ultra generous with them at 6-11.
yeah, I'm 6-11 for them too. I'm high on them compared to consensus, but I just can't see them winning more than that with that schedule. So.
Yeah, I don't know how they'll be able to do it with that schedule. You kind of hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Um,
Wait 1 second before we move on. If you had to rank Zach Wilson at the end of the year, where do you expect him to be?
Bottom 3.
Bottom 3?
Yeah. I think he's better than Tua. I think he'll be better than Trey Lance. I think
because if he ends the year looking like a bottom 3 quarterback again, I think we're going to have some serious questions about Zach Wilson. But if he ends the year looking like the 21st best quarterback in the league, I think that's a good season,
So we'll just play. I'll take Josh Allen over him.
Oh, for sure.
Tua, question mark. You make an argument either way.
Yeah, I'd say 2 is better right now, but by the end of the season, I expect Zach to surpass him.
I'd take Mac Jones over him.
Mm-hmm.
I would take Trubisky over him, but I wouldn't take Kenny Pickett over him.
I'd take Zach Wilson over Trubisky right now.
Dude. The truth, man. The truth, dude. I take Burrow over him. I take Watson over. I take Watson over him. I would take Lamar Jackson over him. So like right now we basically have one team. You know what I mean? Like we have one team. I take Davis Mills over him. I take Trevor Lawrence over him. I take Matt Ryan over him.
Yeah, he's currently ranked my 29th quarterback I have. Yeah.
Like
you just got to make a jump up though this year.
I'm just going through and like literally like I take maybe like him over Tua and him over Pickett. So I don't know. I'm just not that high on him.
He's just got to make a jump. So.
Next team, going to the north. We're going to the defending AFC champions, the Cincinnati Bengals. Interesting fact, last 4 teams that made it to the Super Bowl did not go over their win total the following season, and only 2 of the last 10 have gone over their win total. Interesting thing, the coaching staff been together forever. Zach Taylor really didn't make any changes. Made great improvements on the offensive line, gave up 30 sacks, and PFF had them 29th in pass blocking. They added 3 guys, Collins, Kapica, and Karras. So I think it's going to improve that. Burrow led the NFL in 86% catchable passes. Every playoff game was decided by one possession. Here's something I found very, very interesting. Bengals were 7th in yards passing. Guess where they were in pass attempts?
Bottom 10, bottom 5.
20th.
Yeah.
Bottom 12. So that's just a lot of hot routes. I figured they played at the 3rd slowest pace with improvements of the offensive line. I think Mixon's in sign for a good year. They were 10th in early down runs last season, 6th in early down runs with the lead. But my questions are with the defense. With what the defense did, I just don't think they can maintain it. They just, they lost Ogletree, which hurts. Their defense was just so, how can I say this? What's the next step? They only blitzed 20% of the time. That was bottom 6 in the league, but they created the 14th most pressure, and you lost Ogletree, who is your best run stopper. What is the D-line going to be able to do that and create that much pressure again this year?
Yeah, it's a super interesting team. I looked at it after they lost Ogletree. I looked at Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson, their PFF grades, just to see like how they played last year and how they might do in an expanded role. Logan Wilson had a 56 for his PFF grade, and Jermaine Pratt had a 47. So those guys need to take a massive jump up if the Bengals are to repeat their success from last year.
And massive step up is putting it nicely.
Yeah. The Jesse Bates thing is super interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
I've never been a Jesse Bates guy, dude.
Really?
Never been a Jesse Bates guy. Never at all been a Jesse Bates guy.
What do you see that you don't like about him?
When I watch a game, I need someone to like kind of do something that sticks out. You know what I mean? And even if it's someone like I watch a game and a random guy who's a random, like Grady Jarrett from the Falcons. No one really knows him, but when I watch a game, I'm like, oh wow. So I don't know. I'm just not a big Bates guy. What about you?
I like Bates. I think he's a good young safety, one of the top 5 in the league. but the contract offers they're offering him are incredibly low. So that makes me think that they're going to use Daxton Hill as a replacement rather than a supplement to him or a complement to him. So that's super interesting. But going back a little bit, this offense, as you mentioned, they were third last in pace. I expect that to go up this year, and I'm really excited to see what this offense does. A lot of Bengals fans are saying that, all right, we were just seconds away from winning a Super Bowl with turnstiles on the offensive line, and we addressed that. While that thinking is true, a lot of people forget that NFL isn't just a copy-paste league. You can't just copy results from last year and take it on to next year. And I think the Bengals benefited because they caught a lot of people by surprise this year. They're not going to be catching as many people by surprise. But like we said, the offense is still going to be good. I just don't know how opportunistic and healthy this team can be again to have the same success. I have them at 10-7.
Yeah, I mean, I have them at 9. I mean, you just look at their season. That game at Dallas, I think, on week 2 is going to be a little tricky. Saints, and then you play the Ravens and Saints back-to-back weeks. I think the Falcons are going to be better than advertised. Carolina on a short week. Carolina is going to be a train wreck on offense, but their defense is flipping legit.
Yeah.
The 27th, then you play Kansas. Then you have the little stretch where you go Titans, KC, Browns. I mean, this stretch is brutal to end the season, starting at week 12. You're at Tennessee. God only knows what you're going to get from Tennessee. Then you play the Chiefs. Then you're against the Browns at home. Okay, is it Watson? If it's Watson, that's a tough game. At Tampa in December, which is going to be tough. At New England, Buffalo, and Baltimore again to end the season. That's a tough little schedule for the Bengals. I have them winning 9 games, and I think you're right. People are going to catch up to what they're doing. So yeah, I have them at 9 wins. Also, and it's another math thing. If you have Higgins and Jamar Chase in the top 20, and then you don't have Burrow as a top 3 as your top quarterback, explain to me math-wise how that works. I don't understand math-wise how that works. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I need someone to DM me and they say to me, Eric, both those guys can be in the top 20 and Joe Burrow can be the 8th highest quarterback in the NFL in terms of fantasy. Don't get it. Don't understand it. Next team, going to the Ravens. And I'm not going to lie. I got the Ravens at 24-1 to win the Super Bowl. Offensive line struggled last year. One of the reasons Ronnie Stanley only played 1 game. He's back. They drafted your boy Linderbaum from Iowa at the center position. They also signed Morgan Moses, who's going to start, graded very high in PFF in run blocking. 8-3 in games when Lamar played, losing 5 of 6 games. He did it by a total of 8 points. 25th in turnovers. But I think that's a little bit misleading because that's what happens when you have backup quarterbacks playing. They lost a ton of injuries last year, and that's going to be a lot better going in this year. They got Hamilton in the secondary. They're adding him with Tyler Fuller and Peters and Humphreys, and they signed Marcus Williams from the Saints. That's a pretty good back 4. They got Michael Pierce helps the D-line. They did lose 47 targets in Hollywood Brown, but I always felt Brown was never a good fit for the offense. How's Dobbins going to recover from the ACL? They promoted Mike McDowell to the DC, which means less blitzing, as they were 6th in the NFL in blitzing. McDonald prefers more situational blitz packages. Plus, Martindale, who's now with the Giants, he allowed players to audible. McDonald's not going to let him do it. I think that's going to help the defense. So, what are your thoughts of the Ravens? And then also, who's going to be, besides obviously Mark Andrews, who do you think their wide receiver 1 is going to be?
Okay. I'll answer that last question first. So I think Rashad Bateman, I have him as the breakout player, the player to target in fantasy. This offense really only utilizes 1 wide receiver heavily. So yeah, I think Rashad Bateman's going to be the guy. I had him higher ranked in my draft board than Devonta Smith. I'm like a really big believer on Rashad Bateman. But yeah, as this team as a whole, they're my pick to come out of the AFC. I just really believe in this team. They were injured to all hell last year. I love this team this year. Just positive injury luck. They lost so many games by one score that's not likely to be repeated. They have a great coach, great culture. They nailed the NFL draft like they always do. I expect Linderbaum to have a Creed Humphrey type impact year one. Morgan Moses, solid right tackle. They signed him on the cheap. Kyle Hamilton, impact player. Just they did a lot of things right. Ravens do time and time again, and I really expect them to take a jump up this year. As far as losing Hollywood Brown, I would wish he was there just as a decoy, to have that deep threat. But yeah, no, he didn't fit well in the offense, so it's fine. They'll survive without him.
Yeah, like I think it's going to be my boy from Texas, Duvernay. I think he's going to slide in there. I think he's going to be really good working the underneath of the field. And then when we look at the Ravens schedule, it's not that bad, man. They start off at the Jets, play Miami at home. They could easily be 2-0 going into New England. Then they have 2 tough games. Actually, then they have 3 tough games: New England, Buffalo, and the Bengals. Then they go at New York. God only knows what you're going to get in Cleveland. Then they have 2 tough games back to back, but they will say this: they do have extended rest because they play a primetime game at Tampa. Then they have like a mini bye, play the Saints, and then they have a regular bye. So, I mean, they do get a pretty good chunk of rest there in the middle of the season. Out of the bye, great schedule: Carolina, Jacksonville, then Denver, at Pitt, at Cleveland, Atlanta, Pitt, and then Cincinnati. So, I mean, the end of the season,
it's winnable.
It's winnable. I have them at winning 12 games. I really like this team. I think they're in a good position. My worry is, though, if Lamar goes down again.
Yeah.
That's the big worry. That's the big elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Next team we are going to discuss, and this team is really hard. We don't know what's going on at the quarterback position. Offensive line, they did release J.C. Treader, who is one of the best pass blocking centers. He's going to be replaced by Nick Harris. Harris only played 68 snaps last season, but in that 68, 0 sacks allowed. Big issue with me. Can Conklin and Wills on the bookend tackles, can they stay healthy? Here's a little trivia question for you.
All right.
How many right leg injuries has Kareem Hunt had?
3, 4.
6.
Jeez.
Isn't that a lot, though? All of the same wheel, too. I'm a little worried about that. I like adding Cooper. I think he's going to be more like he was when he played for the Raiders, more of a deep threat, getting the safeties away from the line. I'm assuming if Watson's playing. That opens stuff underneath for David Bell, who I think is a sneaky fantasy guy. If Watson's there, that's going to be more RPOs. They're bringing back Clowney, which is going to help because he is an underrated run stopper. Can still get to the quarterback. Doesn't allow teams to double team Myles Garrett. In terms of the defense, secondary is good. Secondary is really good.
And young.
Depth. They have no depth. If they get hurt, they you know what I mean? This team they have a lot of dudes. They don't have a lot of depth behind the dudes. And I'm going to say it, Stefanski, I had issues with Stefanski, and the more he's on, the more I think my initial read with him with the issues was right. Because I don't like his play calling. How the hell is Nick Chubb averaging 5.1 yards a carry and he's not getting the ball more, especially in playoff games? Or especially without your quarterback. I don't know. I'm questioning Stefanski a lot more after every season passes. What are your thoughts about the Browns?
I said that they're the team in the AFC with the widest range of outcomes. And yeah, that has a lot to do with Deshaun Watson. But even if Deshaun Watson plays, there's no guarantee he's going to be that top 5-7 quarterback he was 2 years ago. 2 years off from football is a long time. So there's no guarantee he comes back and hits the ground running. Brissett, if he plays, he's at best, the 30th best quarterback in the league right now. And that just dramatically lowers your ceiling and floor. Also, with all this controversy, I think that the Browns will have a target on their back, especially if Deshaun Watson gets off scot-free. And I don't think they need that extra bad karma in their franchise. The Browns already are unlucky as they get. I really did like the Amari Cooper signing, or getting Amari Cooper, because even if you have Brissett or Watson, Amari Cooper is one of the best separators in the NFL, and he's a very underrated wide receiver. Defensively, Myles Garrett should be an MV or a DPOY candidate. And then I'm really looking forward to seeing Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah again, because pre-injury, he was looking like he was going to rival Micah Parsons for Defensive Rookie of the Year. But then he got injured. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he is. But there's just a wide variance on this team that I'm not sure. Also, Stefanski's play calling has been suspect, to say the least, as you mentioned. But just with all those going on, and then I don't really think Watson's going to be able to play, at least for most of the season. I have them going 6-11.
Yeah, I don't know. I had them going 8. I haven't won in 8 games, and I think I'm being generous.
I haven't even been able to find over and unders on that.
Yeah, they've been completely taken off the board. Mm-hmm. Here's a little thing. So I'm good friends with a guy who used to play in the NBA, multiple years, championship, been on championship teams. He was so absolutely anal about taking care of his body. When they went on road trips during the season, he would pay for his masseuse, travel, lodging, meals, and a salary. And you're telling me that in his hometown, D. Watt has to have 20 some odd masseuses? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out something fishy's going on there. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. You don't need that many.
Season, I don't care who's playing. Baker Mayfield's going to throw for 500 yards and have 3 touchdowns in week 1. They're losing.
Lock in the Panthers.
Then they play the Jets, Pittsburgh, 2 winnable games. I'm telling you, Atlanta's going to be sneaky good this year. Atlanta's going to be sneaky good this year. And then look at this stretch: Chargers, Pats, Ravens, Bengals. It's a tough stretch. Miami off the bye. God only knows where you're going to get. 2 tough back-to-backs: Buffalo and Tampa, and at Houston, at the Bengals, Ravens. New Orleans is going to be good. God only knows where you're getting the last 2 games of the season. So the schedule doesn't play out that good. There are questions on the offensive line, questions on the defense, questions at quarterback. I have their ceiling as 8 wins.
Yeah. 6-11 is what I have. So yeah, ceiling is probably 8.
Now, the next team, the last team, Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I tried to tell everyone last year they had the worst offensive line in the league. No one listened to me. They returned 3 starters from that unit who all graded out poorly from PFF. The only bright spot was Kevin Dotson, who looked good before suffering a season-ending injury. And that's my worry. You have a poor offensive line. Your best one suffered a season-ending injury. What is going to happen with him? I'm a little worried about that. If they start Pickett, oh my God, this is going to be a nightmare. You cannot start Pickett behind this offensive line. They brought in Pat Meyer, who's going to be the offensive line coach. They're going to implement the wide zone concept that Harris ran at Bama. Having a poor unit changing a blocking system, I think it's going to be a little bit different, a little hard. Now and this is why I don't listen to media, and this is how narratives change. Okay. All you hear about the Chargers is what on their defense? They can't stop the run. You know what I mean? That's what everybody talked about last year, right? Which team gave up the most rushing yards and gave up the most rushing yards per attempt last season?
It was the Steelers?
It was the Steelers. And no one, you know what I mean? Like, everyone
has really surprising
narrative that the Steelers are this like legit defense.
They brought in former Lions defensive coordinator Trayvon Austin. He's their new DC. His career being a DC isn't that good. He had one good season in Detroit, and that's when Detroit had like Fairley and Sue and that legit defensive line. They did add Myles Jarrett, which is going to allow people not to double Watt. I defense, their back four is they don't have Joe Hayden's not back there anymore. It's not that good of a defense that people think. Najee Harris was 48th in yards before contact. I will say this. I think that their offense will be a little different, though. Matt Canada, he likes to learn a lot of RPOs, a lot of play action passes. They had less than 100 play action passes last year, ran 0 RPOs, ran 0 pre-snap motion just because Big Ben didn't like it. Big Ben only averaged 6.8 yards pass attempts, which is bottom 3 in quarterbacks. I think they're going to throw it downfield more, regardless if it's Trubisky or small hands Pickett, which I think is bad news for Deontay Johnson. I actually bet Deontay Johnson has under 1,000 yards receiving because he works the underneath. And also he did play the AB role. Big Ben's not there anymore. I don't think he's going to get as many targets. And I played the Steelers under 7.5. I haven't won in 6 games, and I think I'm being ultra generous. What do you think about the Steelers?
Interesting. I kind of took a different tone on them. At first, I was super low on them, but then I looked more at their roster. There's actually some things to like. I think a lot of it, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to Mike Tomlin. The fact that he hasn't had a losing season in 15 years is remarkable, especially considering how much fluctuation and variables happen in the NFL. But when I look at their offense, Big Ben was a corpse out there. Like, they literally couldn't do anything down the field. He couldn't move. And I think that they're going to benefit just from having Trubisky or Pickett out there, like a better arm, a more mobile QB. And I don't think the offense is going to change that much. I think it's going to be like a lot of quick hitting stuff. They're going to add some RPOs now. But I think they're going to benefit a lot from that because we look at this O-line. It still is one of the worst O-lines, but I think they mitigated the how bad it hurt them by getting the ball out quick. So I still think they're going to do that. The defense, what would you say their defensive coordinator's name was? His name's escaped.
Trayvon Austin.
Trayvon Austin. So I think when you have Trayvon Austin, Brian Flores is now working with them, and then also Mike Tomlin, he's defensive guy. I think this defense will be well coached, better than last year. That running defense stat was shocking, but I just think they'll be a decent unit. And I think with how much volatility the Browns have, I think they could sneak in 8 wins.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it with them. And you mentioned Trayvon Austin. I'm trying to pull this up real quick right here. Like, he was last was a DC with the Baltimore Bengals. Okay. Here is where he ranked in terms of like in the NFL. All right. He's been the DB coach the last 4 years. Last time was a DC and was back in 2018 with the Bengals. Trying to find these rankings. Of course, I love it. Like when I'm doing a recording and like, oh, here we go. Points against, bottom 3. Total yards, last. Takeaways, 21st. Rushing yards, bottom 3. Rushing TDs, bottom 6. Passing yards, worst. Passing TDs, bottom 6. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like it was like an illustration. And I get it. You're playing with the Bengals. Fine, whatever. But, it's not like it was like, you know what I mean? Like the NFL average last time it was a DC, about 325 yards. They almost gave up 425 yards per game when he was with the Bengals. Points per game last time, about 22. He gave up about 28. It's just the defense just wasn't there. And I know that's my whole thing why I really don't listen to sports media. And I know that's kind of like what we're doing right now, being media people and breaking it down. But it's like everyone says Steelers. Oh, dude, best defense in the league. You know what I mean? They just don't just look at the numbers. This team gave up some of the worst offensive yards rushing. They were the worst offensive yards rushing per game. So I don't know. I'm just not sipping the Kool-Aid. And I get it. You know, Tomlin's phenomenal, but it just tells me he's due, man. It just tells me he's due for that one losing season, my friend.
Yeah, I look at Tomlin like how you looked at Belichick, give him the benefit of the doubt. I do. One thing you did mention before is Joe Hayden. I think, honestly, they'll benefit a little bit from having Joe Hayden gone because I just think a 33-year-old corner out there, he was very stiff, couldn't hang with some of those receivers. I think getting younger will help them in the long run. But yeah, still not a playoff team. Still one of the least talented teams in the division.
Yeah,
8 and 9.
So now let's move. We're halfway through our AFC talk. We're going to go to the AFC South now. We're going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Interesting thing with the Jacksonville Jaguars. What Doug Peterson are we going to get? Are we going to get the Peterson when they won it, or the Peterson last time he coached where he just sandbagged the second half against the Commanders when was it Washington against when he was coach?
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Lawrence finally getting coaching. You know, he really struggled last year. You could tell that because he only saw half of a field when it was inside the 20, so shrunken, condensed place to work with, and he would just take off and run. We talking about terrible coaches. All right, so let's play a game. Guess where the Jags were in rushing yards per attempt last year.
Rushing yards per attempt. Top half of the league. So.
Ninth. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. Mm-hmm. Guess where they ranked in rushing attempts. So that means how many times? Yeah.
Dead last.
30th. That just shows you how clueless Urban Meyer was. You know, they kept Cam Robinson, which was great. They signed Brandon Sarah from the Commanders. God only knows if he's going to be able to stay healthy. They did lose Lindor, who's arguably the best center in the league. So I think that kind of hurts the offensive line. But here's a little thing I got a lot of trivia questions today, buddy. How many tight ends last year averaged over 10 fantasy points per game?
5.
2. Every year in the Doug Peterson offense, their tight end has averaged over 10 yards per game in terms of fantasy. And this is mind-boggling. 122 targets, 86 receptions, and 6 touchdowns. I think Evan Ingram is going to be a big part of this offense. I kind of think he's a little sneaky. Defensively, back four is an utter nightmare. Front seven loaded. They hired Caldwell, disciple of Todd Bowles. He'll help the Jags create pressure. 18th in pressure created. Drafting Walker and Lloyd, helps the defense. But I just have a lot of Doug Peterson questions. Like, what Doug Peterson are we going to get? And when you have all these young players and all they're used to is losing, I think that just kind of manifests.
Yeah. I'm very low on this Jaguars team. I have them at 5-12. Doug Peterson, I was doing my head coach rankings. I gave him 26. Ooh. And people will probably say, oh, that's low. He won a Super Bowl. Ooh. Well, yeah, he's a completely different coach than he was back then. The Eagles team that I saw him coach when he last coached was one of the worst coach teams in the league. Just like people forgetting assignments, blocking or running into each other, quarterbacks handing the ball off the wrong way. It was just really bad, really bad. And I think what Jacksonville did is they got another name for a head coach. Like, oh, Urban Meyer, he's a flashy head coach, had previous success at the collegiate level. They got him because he was a name. I think Doug Peterson, he's another big name. They got him, but he's just not a good coach anymore. He's just not a good coach. I think Frank Reich was a reason for a lot of his success, but that's neither here nor there. I think Trevor Lawrence, they just rely on him too much to do hero ball. As you said, they didn't run the ball enough. I just think this could be really bad. They've invested so heavily in their weapons, but it's still a bottom 5 receiving core, I'd say. Evan Ingram, I've watched him too much as a Giants fan myself. I have no confidence in him whatsoever to be good.
Scenery, man. Change the scenery.
Maybe. But the defense, sky's the limit for this defense in the coming years. But year one, no. I mean, Trayvon Walker's literally got to learn how to rush the passer. He didn't do that too much at Georgia. And then you look at Kayvon Chason, he was that athletically gifted edge that they thought they could develop next to Josh Allen. That's exactly what Trayvon Walker is. Chason hasn't developed whatsoever. So I am worried about Walker's development with this coaching staff. You said it, the secondary is pretty bad. They have all these high expectations. I just think this could get really ugly really fast. And then we could be looking next year at Trevor Lawrence. Like, is he the guy? Just because of how bad things are around him.
Yeah. So, I'm winning 6 games. I think that's a lot. So, yeah, we're both a little down on the Jaguars compared to the market. Now we're going to get to America's team, the Houston Texans. God damn it. I love this team. Love this team, dude. Offensive line, dude, it's not going to be as bad as people think. They brought in A.J. Cann, Titus Howard, who was serviceable. He was serviceable at left tackle when Tussell went down, going back to right tackle. They drafted Kenyon Green. He was my highest rated run blocker in the draft. So I think this unit's going to be better. I think they're going to be able to run the ball, which is going to be important because Pep Hamilton is coming in as the offensive coordinator. Loves to run the ball. Lovie Smith, great guy. You know why Lovie Smith is a great guy? I'm gonna tell everyone a little Lovie Smith story. I was in the Jewel, okay? And I live in the northern suburbs of Chicago, right in the suburb next to where the Bears have their practice facility and everything. At the Jewel late night, Lovie Smith, full cart. I have 2 items. Freaking Lovie Smith let me go in front of him, man. Great guy. But he's a defensive-minded coach. He's going to want to control the clock. He's going to want to run the ball. They were only 13th in turnovers last season. Davis Mills, as a rookie, was 0 talent, only at 10 interceptions. So I think I could easily make the argument out of every single quarterback, Davis Mills was the best rookie. Brandon Cooks, 26% target share. I really like that. Lovie Smith was the defensive coordinator last year. They only blitzed 20% of the time last season, one of the lowest rates in the league, one of the lowest in Smith's history. They added Christian Harris from Bama, Jerry Hughes from the Bills. I think that's going to increase. Insanely talented secretary, but it's young. I think it's going to take a little while for them to get it together. But here's an interesting stat for you, buddy. What happens? Would you be interested if I told you a betting trend that hits 71% of the time?
Yeah, absolutely.
What about a betting trend that hits 65% of the time?
Oh, yeah. Still let me know.
Home divisional dogs against the spread week 1, 71%. Home divisional dogs straight up, 65%. Give me the Texans +8 and the Texans money line week 1. Lock it in.
Okay. Who do they have week 1?
The Colts.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think this team is just going to be surprising. In a word to sum up this team, it's conservative. You got an experienced coaching staff, conservative offense that's going to just control the clock, try not to turn the ball over. And then you got a defensive scheme. As you said, they don't blitz a lot. They run that Tampa 2, Lovie Smith that they like. This team's going to be really solid. I think with all the teams in the AFC that are more flashy, are better, people are going to overlook the Texans, and they can catch a lot of teams sleeping if they don't wake up on them. Davis Mills had a very good year. I don't expect him to regress at all. I just expect him to keep moving forward. But yeah, this team isn't as talented as other teams, so I still have them going 6-11. But there's a lot to like. They're unlike other of the worst teams in the NFL. With a lot of those conversations, you feel like negative towards them, but I feel positive about what the Texans are building.
I have them 6-11 too. I bet them over 4.5 wins. I really like them. I think they're heading in the right direction. Like I said, I think I mentioned this. They're implementing the same system that Mills ran at Stafford. That's just going to make another comfortable thing. I think this team is going to be sneaky. I think they're going to be dangerous. I bet them over 4.5 wins. I have them going 6-11 too. Catch the Bears on the short week right after they play the Giants. Play the Titans sandwiched in between the Colts and Chiefs. You know what I mean? They just have some good situational spots in their schedule. I think we're going to be able to get some value on them. Now we're gonna go to one of the interesting teams in the world, Indianapolis Colts. Danny Pinter is shifting from center to right guard. Kelly's going to be taking over at center. Is Nelson going to be able to stay healthy? Those are kind of my notes and concerns with the offensive line. How is the rookie from CMU? Is he going to be starting? If he does, how is he going to be as a rookie, be able to handle the left tackle position? I know everyone's talking about Matt Ryan and throwing the ball down the field, and he's more accurate than Carson Wentz. But Frank Wright likes to run RPOs. Matt Ryan, you can't do that with Matt Ryan. And I found something interesting with Jonathan Taylor, and I wanted to share that with you. Let me pull this up real quick. Jonathan Taylor. So you draft a guy in for fantasy. Taylor's obviously the number one choice here. What would you want the floor for points for Jonathan Taylor? You take him as the first pick. What would you want as points? Per week.
Per week?
Yeah. Would you want 20? Like 15?
I think that's fair to expect from the number one overall pick, 20.
Here's the thing. If you take out that 53.4 game, okay, he's getting under 20 points per game. You look, championship game, only 18.4. Semifinal game, only 10.8. He started off the season 17.6. Then he had back-to-back weeks, dude. Didn't even break 10 points. 6.3 points against the Rams, 8.2 against the Chargers. Then he went on a little run against Miami, Baltimore, and Houston. It's just it fluctuates. My point is, it fluctuated a lot with him. And I really I think that has to do with the Frank Wright and his ability to call a game. I just don't understand some of the stuff he does. Next thing, how do you feel about Gus Bradley?
Take him or leave him.
I leave him, and he's their defensive coordinator. I think he'll definitely blitz more. They're 31st in pressure created, which is awful, especially when you consider they have the DeForest Buckner, who's one of the better defensive linemen in the league. Here's a little trivia question for you. Where do you think they ranked in missed tackles last year?
Middle of the week.
30th. They missed a ton of tackles.
That's also interesting because when you think of the Colts, you think of a disciplined team.
Yeah. It's just kind of one of this thing interesting. I have them going at 10-7, but I feel like I'm putting a little too much respect on that 10-7. What do you think about the Colts?
Really? I have them 11-6. When you look at their division, it's not going to be a good division. I think the Titans, who we'll get to in a second, have much more questions than the Colts. This Colts team was looking like a dark horse contender for a little bit, but Carson Wentz obviously limited what they can do. I think Matt Ryan, new scenery, he looks happy, he looks healthy, he's in good shape. I think behind a decent or pretty solid O-line, I think he can do some good things. This is one of the most balanced rosters in the NFL. They don't have the ceiling as like some of those other teams or the higher power teams, but this team's going to be really good, and they play in a bad division. I have them at 11-6. I really look forward to seeing Michael Pittman Jr. this year. When you think about Matt Ryan, he's always feeding his wide receiver one, whether that was Roddy White, Julio Jones, or Calvin Ridley for 1 year. He always feeds his wide receiver one, and I think Michael Pittman Jr., he's in a position to eat this year. And I just think this is going to be a good team. Good team, not great team. 11-6.
I have them going at 10-7, and I feel bad about it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm like stretching out that 10-7 a little bit too much. I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, it's just,
it could very well be a 9-win team as well. Like, I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, I look at it like this. Texans could be better. Titans are a question mark. This team underachieved last year. as much as I think it kind of gets blown under the wind, Frank White's game calling in these games. You know what I mean? Like,
That's fair.
You have, okay, how many, just off the top of the head, how many carries do you think Jonathan Taylor got in that must-win game at Jacksonville?
I know he didn't run the ball enough, so let's say like 14.
15. Why is your best player touching the ball only, oh, he had 3 receptions. Okay. Why do you only have 15 rushing attempts? And against the Jaguars, who weren't that good against the run last year, makes zero flipping sense to me. And you have all that time to prepare and you lose to the Jaguars? Come on. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Like, I'm not a big Frank Ray guy. I have him at 10-7. So this next team's interesting. It's one of those teams, like, you just kind of sit back and I just don't get it. I don't get how they win. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't get it. You look at their offensive line. They lost their 2 interior guards in Scaffold and Quisenberry, both going to the Bills. Taylor Lewan hasn't been the same since the ACL injury. They're replacing Scaffold and Davis with it's looking right now like it's going to be Aaron Brewer, who was a backup last season, and Jamarco Jones, signed from Seattle, both graded out poorly by PFF. With no A.J. Brown and no Julio Jones and no first or no true number one, teams are just going to stack a box against an offensive line that lost 2 top 13 guards per PFF, playing with Derrick Henry, who has a legitimate screw in his foot, and their rookie wide receiver, Burke, showed up out of shape and can't pass his physical test. I mean, what? Like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just, when you say that all out loud, you kind of have to be like, what the hell? But then you look at what they did last season. They're the best team in the AFC somehow. So without Derrick Henry.
You know, this team is super interesting. It really felt like if the Titans were going to capitalize on their window and win a Super Bowl, last year had to be the year. It just feels like the wheels are coming off slowly. They got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, as evidenced by trading A.J. Brown and taking Treylon Burks, and then also drafting Malik Willis. It just kind of feels like they're just teetering on that line, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like you said, their offensive line is weaker from the previous year. They don't have a true wide receiver 1. Robert Woods is coming off of an injury himself. He should be good, but he's still coming off an injury. I'm just sour on this team a little bit. They still, like I said, it's got to be either the Colts or Titans to win the division. We're both fans of the Texans and how they look, but it's a long shot that they win the division. So it's got to be one of those 2 teams. With all the question marks they have, I just like the Colts a little bit better.
How do you feel about this bet? This is one bet I locked in. Derrick Henry under 1,400 yards.
Oh, like you said, they're going to have so many people in the box. There's no real vertical threat. There's no real lack of dynamicism in the passing game. I can definitely see that.
A new word, dynamicism.
Yeah, creating words on the fly. But yeah, no,
that's a good bet though. You know what I mean? Under 1,400.
He can only take this team so far, and his body's finally breaking down. He looked indestructible for so many years that it's finally catching up to him.
Now we're gonna shift to the conference. You know what? This, you know what? I'm gonna be Bill Wallen right here. The Conference of Champions, AFC West. I'm looking forward to this. All these teams should be just phenomenal games. A lot of high scoring games. We got the Denver Broncos. We'll start out with them. They hired Butch Berry as their offensive line coach, which means they'll be switching from more of a power zone running team to more of a combo running team, mixing in zone and blocking schemes. I'm interested to see how my boy, you remember him, how Cushenberry takes up year 3. He took a huge step forward last season. They had the 6th fewest turnovers last year. I feel the offense with how the play calling was and what they were doing last year in terms of, how can I say this? distribution of touches didn't make sense to me. Broncos played against the 5th most stacked boxes. I feel having Wilson there taking advantage of that. Receivers, I don't know who I like the wide receivers. I love my boy Javonte Williams. Earlier in the show, we had a Scotty on and we did a fantasy football rankings. I had Javonte Williams as my 5th overall running back. My worry is this, though. This is my worry. I don't like coaches and OCs that have never called plays before. And that right there is Nate Hackett and his OC. They have never called plays before. They've never designed plays. And I'm worried about that. I'm worried about Wilson, because there's a lot of rumors, like, because of how he is in the locker room, that he's lost, he's not the leader he was, is because of like his injuries. Is he falling back to earth? I have him at 9-8, and I bet the under 10 wins. What do you have him? What do you say?
I'll just mention what I said recently when you did the AFC West preview. This team, every team in the division has hype, and it's all warranted. But 2 teams are going to be massively disappointed at the end of the year. And for me, I think the Broncos will be one of those disappointed teams. If you look at Russell Wilson's first, he looks really good at the start of the season the past 2 years, and then he's fallen off a cliff. I mean, you can blame injuries, you can blame other things, but he really has not looked that good in both years. So I don't know, in a new scheme with new receivers, because he already had great weapons in Seattle. So I don't know, in a new scheme, if he'll be able to get back to that old MVP type Russ form. I'm worried about this coaching staff continuing to give carries to Melvin Gordon over Javonte Williams, because if he gets the boatload of carries, he's in for a big year. Nathaniel Hackett, I wasn't convinced as a hire, or as their hire. He just doesn't seem like that great of a coach to me. But I mean, it all remains to be seen. But I don't have the confidence in this group like I have others.
Yeah, I don't have confidence in him at all. That's why I have him at 9 wins.
Actually, have him as low as 7 and 10, because one team's going to get disappointed, and then it's just going to spiral.
And their schedule. They play at Seattle. Wilson revenge game. They play Houston. They play the 49ers. They play the Raiders. They could easily be 4-0 there. But then they play the Colts. Tough game. Chargers, tough game. Jets on a short week. The Jaguars, you don't know what we're going to get from Jacksonville. Play Tennessee, don't know what we're going to get from Tennessee. They just have a lot. I have them at 9 wins, and I feel like I stretched them out at 9. So that's why I like this under of 10. I don't know. I've never really been a Wilson guy, and can I say this? I've heard a lot of talk saying that how he kind of preaches religious stuff, like, was growing really thin in the Seattle locker room. He kind of lost the locker room. So yeah, that's my thing on the Broncos. I'm not that high on them. I have them at 9 wins. I bet the under. I know my boy Mike likes him. He's on the over, but we're gonna agree to disagree there. Next team, you know what? We're gonna go to the Chiefs here, because the Chiefs are an interesting team to me. And I'm gonna start off, and I'm gonna ask you this question. Last 4 seasons, Eric Bieniemy has been the offensive play caller. Last 4 seasons, he's had that taken away from him. They brought in Matt Nagy. Do you see a scenario, where they eliminate Bieniemy from the staff? They just fire him.
I never really considered that possibility.
And Nagy is the offensive coordinator.
I think that would definitely be a step backwards. I haven't really considered that possibility yet, though.
Yeah, dude, look at me, dude. I mean, this nice little thing. Tell everyone to follow you on IG and Twitter.
Wow, and then, all the graphics.
And then old Eric forgot, dude. Old ass Eric forgot. Looking at the Chiefs, I think that's a possibility, though. I really do think that's a little bit of a possibility that could happen. Offensive line weakness 2 years ago. Rookie Kareem Humphrey, number 1 PFF. Graded center. Rookie Trey Smith was a 20th PFF guard. Their only real issue is who's going to play right tackle. They brought in Juju, Sky Moore. They have Marco Hardman. So I don't think replacing Tyreek Hill is going to be that big of a deal. I think Rojo, Ronald Jones, is going to be RB1. Everyone's saying what you and I have been saying since they drafted him. Edwards-Helaire is too small, can't block, and he can't run in between the tackles. They have one of the hardest strength of schedules, according to Wins. What's going to be the next step in the progression of the offense? We started to see it the last year. Teams just played the 2-eye safeties, and when Kelsey and Hill were both healthy, they were able to be contained. Kelsey's almost over 30, wrong side of 30. And at the end of the day, what Mahomes are we going to see? We're going to see the Mahomes that was in the second half of the Bengals, because that was a big thing. Speaking of that, did you ever see that TikTok with who's the big drug cartel guy from Mexico? Chapo?
Yeah.
El Chapo and Mahomes' old man.
No.
So this guy made a TikTok. Basically, on all of Mahomes' old man, there was the same guy that was in all his baseball cards. And that he owed money to El Chapo. And because he owed money to El Chapo had him throw the game in the second half. I mean, it was a well-done TikTok, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but at the end of the day, we look at their defense, okay? They drafted the kid from Washington, McDuffie. Cornerback is tough rookie. They're going to be relying on him, relying on the kid from Purdue, who's a rookie, and relying on Sky Moore, that's a rookie. So that means a pass rusher, a wide receiver, and a starting DB. Those are 3 positions where rookies tend to struggle at. So I'm a little down on this Kansas City team.
Yeah, this team's going to be super interesting. It all starts with Patrick Mahomes. This is going to be the year we learn the most about him, because Travis Kelce, as you said, wrong side of 30. Tyreek Hill is gone. The run game still hasn't figured itself out. So we get to really see, is Patrick Mahomes a top 2-3 quarterback in the NFL? Because if the Chiefs are going to go as far as they expect to go, he's going to have a heck of a season. And honestly, I think he can do it. I think him, Andy Reid, they've put together a good offense for so many years. I think the GM went out and got decent weapons to give them a diversified skill set to work with. And I think the offense is going to be fine. I think the defense, it is relying on 2 rookies, but those are 2 rookies that I felt had firm first-round grades for me. I really do like Trent McDuffie. I feel like if he was just 2 inches taller, he would have been in a top 15 pick. I think he's very talented. I think this defense is going to drastically improve from not having Daniel Sorensen in there. I think Juan Thornhill starting will give them just a lot higher upside at the safety position. And then Justin Reed, he was quietly one of the Texans' best players last season. So I actually like that replacement for Tyrann Mathieu. But yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of question marks compared to previous years. I have them going 10-7 because I'm not ready to appoint a new winner in this division quite yet. But yeah, 10-7. And
I'm a 10-7 too, but I just feel that's Mahomes biased for me. If that, you know what I mean? I don't know. I could see the wheels falling off. So the next one, we're going to the team that was the 3rd most overachieving team last year per Pythagorean win total, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. Raider Nation, and I'm sorry, Raider Nation, I'm going to break your guys' heart. I'm going to utterly break your guys' heart, Raider Nation. I bet you guys under the win total. I think the Raiders are going to really struggle this year. They brought in Josh McDaniels, but we've seen the history of Belichick coaches struggling. Offensive line will struggle, switching blocking schemes. Denzel Good was their best player last year. He's coming back from a season-ending injury, and we've all seen Tyler Lewan, perfect example, first year back after a season-long injury. People struggle. Devontae Adams is good. Yeah, Chandler Jones is good. Father Time is undefeated. They're both at that age where people start to deteriorate. I kind of like Josh Jacobs this year in fantasy, though. I feel McDaniels is going to run him into the ground, just kind of like Belichick does. You have a 24-year-old playing for his payday, so he's going to be going balls to the wall. Teams that overachieve their win total by one or more suffer regression. This team overachieved their win total by almost 3. And is it crazy? Like, this is my thought. If they would have kept Cameron Brinkaw, or however you say his name, I would like this team more than them bringing in Josh McDaniel. I did it. I took the under. I'm on their under right here. What say you?
You know, I've wrote this team off the past couple years, and they've always found a way to surprise me. And honestly, I'm not quick to write them off this year. I feel like out of the 4 teams in the AFC West, they have the least amount of hype surrounding their season. Yes, they definitely did overperform for their win metric, but I have reasons to be optimistic. If you just think about the story of the season last year they had to deal with Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett situation, and then the John Gruden situation. That's 3 massive things to deal with. And they battled through so much adversity, and took the Super Bowl runner-ups the distance at their home field. So just thinking about all those things, I think if they have some positive regression in terms of less drama, then the season could be better. But that offensive line, it's a struggle. The reason I do have to be optimistic, even with that bad O-line, is because you add a guy like Devontae Adams, who's going to get it open so quick for Derek Carr. That's going to allow them to do some things. But even then, defense, not sold on it. O-line, not sold on it. New head coach from the Belichick tree. I have them going 8-9, but I'm just not ready to write them off as dead last in the division.
I'm writing them off as dead last in the division. I just, like, my thing is this, dude. Is at the end of the day, this quarterback play wins in the league, right? Who's the worst quarterback in the league? Who's the worst?
I'd say it's Derek Carr, but it's a possibility that Russell Wilson ends the year as the worst quarterback in the division.
I don't know. Like, it's just one of those things with me where I think they overachieved by so much last year. I think they're just going to come back to the norm. Last team. And I put this team in at 20-1. Right now, they're 10-1. I wouldn't bet them right now at 10-1. The Los Angeles Chargers. And what the Chargers are doing is they're slowly turning into New Orleans West. They brought in Brandon Nugent. I know everyone's like, Eric, who the hell is Brandon Nugent? Well, let me tell you guys. He's an offensive line coach. Was with the Saints 2017 to 2021. During that time, they allowed the 4th fewest sacks and averaged 142 yards running. They got Zion Johnson in the draft, which is going to help the offensive line. It's going to improve the right side, which was the weakness. Herbert entering year 3, I expect him to make a better step forward. Defensively, they got J.C. Jackson. They got Calvin Mack. But they also got Joseph Day, and Austin Johnson, which is going to help the interior, help stop the run, which was their big struggle this year. I'm really high on Haley. I think he's an elite coach. I think he knows his stuff. I think he kind of started reading his own press clippings about people judging him going for it and everything. I think he's going to get better of knowing when to go for it, when not to go for it. And I think adding the 2 guys up front, Khalil Mack, I think this defense is legit. I have him going 11-6. I really like him. I would not bet him, though, to win the Super Bowl because you missed out at that 20-1 number. What do you say about the Chargers?
So the Chargers are a team I've consistently been high on and gotten burned for that. But, there's just so much to like about this team. I mean, Zion Johnson, he was a top 12 player in the class for me. They boast one of the best pass rushing duos between Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. J.C. Jackson, he's a lockdown corner, so that's going to allow Asante Samuel Jr., who has tons of potential to take the number 2 guy. Derwin James, one of my favorite players in the league. He just does so much as that star defender when it's coming down into the box, covering zones. He just does so much well. Justin Herbert, we already know how good he is. Austin Eckler, one of the most underrated players. There's just so much to like about this team. Sebastian Joseph Day was the most underrated signing. I think he's going to help that squishy Chargers front But the only thing that my hesitation about the Chargers is they've had so much hype in previous years that I'm not sure. So also, when you compare the lack of home field advantage, that's something you have to mention. And also comparing it against the other 3 teams in the NFL or in their division. Sorry. The Chiefs have Arrowhead. Their fans are rocking. It's super hard to play there. Mile High Stadium, they have that advantage with the high altitude. And even Raiders fans, they're diehards. So it's just hard. I mean, they're going to have to win 4 or 5 division games if they want to win this division. And I don't know if they can go into Arrowhead. I don't know if they can go into Mile High and win. But yeah, that's my only hesitation. Brandon Staley, he's an ascending young mind, and he should make that jump. He's a good Coach of the Year candidate at plus 1,400. But yeah, I like the Chargers. I like them 10-7.
And also, we forgot to mention they added Bryce Callahan. So Bryce is going to be that nickel DB, which is huge. You have him in the nickel corner. You have Asante Samuel. You have J.C. Jackson. You have your boy Derwin James. It's a pretty good secondary, man. Like you got Mack, you got Bosa, 2 guys that can get to the quarterback. I don't know, man. Like more and more, I just kind of sit back. I'm liking him even more and more. And like if we just kind of look at their schedule, it is where do we got their schedule here? Their schedule, I think they're going to kill the Raiders. I think this is the revenge spots. Week 1, I think they're going to kill the Raiders. They have that tough short turnaround at Kansas City. But then after that, Jacksonville, Houston, Browns, potentially without Watson. All doable. Then they play the Broncos. Don't know what we're going to get from Wilson. And then Seattle. I mean, they could be 6-1, 7-0, 5-2 going into that bye, which would be unbelievable. If that happens, I think this team is in a good position. So yeah, I think right now my 2 top teams in AFC 1 and 2 would be Ravens 1, Chargers 2. What say you? Oh no, sorry, Bills 1, Ravens 2, Chargers 3. I forgot about the Bills. My bad.
Yeah, I have Bills 1, Ravens 2. I have the Chiefs and Chargers both finishing 10-7.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. My playoff predictions. I have the Colts at 11-6. The Colts are third for me. I have the Chiefs winning the tiebreaker over the Chargers. So they're 4th, Chargers 5th. Bengals are 10-7, so they're 6th, and then the Titans are the last playoff spot at 9-8.
Yeah, I have the Titans getting into. My playoff teams are the Bills 1, Ravens 2, 3 is the Chargers, 4 is the Colts, and then my wild card teams are the Chiefs, which I could easily see them not being, but I think that's Mahomes biased. The Bengals and the Titans. Okay, I have the Bengals. I have the Bengals being the last team in. I have the Bengals winning 9 and being the last team in the playoffs.
Okay, we got the same playoff teams.
So basically, we do have the same. Sterling, dude, I'd like to thank, dude. We did 7 minutes shorter than last year, so we are getting better going through this.
Yeah, brevity.
Thanks for coming on. Next week we're gonna break down the NFC. Looking forward to that. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media?
So at Silver Star Sports on Instagram, at Silverstar, then there's an underscore and then sports. Obviously, to be able to do this show, I had to do a lot of research on teams. So I'm looking forward to posting my content. It's just a matter of making graphics. I've got everything written out. So I'll be posting my predictions here in a little bit. Please follow me there. I'll probably be on to talk about the NFC, as you said. But yeah, just follow me there. And thanks for having me, as always. It's always fun.
Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk next week. And everyone, make sure you give Sterling a follow at Silver Star Sports on. Don't forget about Twitter, my friend. Twitter, too. And Instagram. We'll talk next week, buddy.
Thank you.